Hell with Vince McMahon. I don't need him.
Radiation is a curious thing. No one expects what it would bring. Bugs, size, men. All our sugar, the ants will take. A few we may never fix this mistake. We'll live to make again.
Well, hello. Today we have a very special guest, but first, I'm looking good, feeling good, loving life. I hope that you can say the same today. My guest, he is a longtime Western PA wrestler. He is Mr. Dean Radford. Dean?
How are you?
How are you? We almost missed.
We almost did. It was like a, I don't know what's going on.
Shouldn't we be doing shouldn't we be doing the brother handshake?
Oh,
yeah.
I think only JB Destiny still does.
Okay, all right. My buddy Bubba Brewer does those too.
Is he
Yep,
still?
still to this day. Yep, still does the brother handshake.
Oh,
So let's go ahead and jump right into it. How did the love of wrestling start for you?
well, when I was very young, my brother actually used to take me to AWA shows in New Eagle, which is right in Monongahela, PA. They used to run shows on the barges right down by the water. And, you know, nothing different from what we've done. Guys coming out of little tents, going out there, and, you know, Superfly Jimmy Snuka was in the ring with Playboy Buddy Rose. So, also, Big Scott Hall was on the show, the Midnight Rockers, you know. So it was a great time for wrestling. Hulk Hogan has always been my thing with wrestling growing up. That was my era. Hulkamania was it. But, watching the AWA as a kid, going to see those shows, I guess we can call them the indie shows back in the day, because it wasn't nothing big production or anything, but that's what caught my eye, seeing good old Superfly.
Okay, Superfly, Hogan. Were there other guys that were sort of your favorites growing up?
I was a huge fan of Roddy Piper,
Okay.
Hogan, Macho Man. I mean, I liked Bruno, but I was not in the Bruno era, I guess you could say. I was always a fan of Ricky Dragon Steamboat. Great Buddha, and pretty much more on the NWA end. It was more like tag teams. I was a big fan of Road Warriors and Rock and Roll Express and Midnight Express.
Some of these, you named a lot of guys. What sort of attracted you to these particular characters?
I think it was the larger than life feel. You know, you had the Road Warriors with the paint, the muscles, the spikes. You know, Hogan was all over the place, and Piper with his attitude, and him and Superfly with their feud and the coconut over the head, and then you had the technique of the Midnight Express, the Rock and Roll Express. I mean, it all just engulfed me with wrestling.
Okay. Now, I know you said AWA felt like independence, but clearly
Huge.
it was not independent.
Right. Huge.
So if we're moving past that,
Yep.
how does a young Dean Radford find out about independent wrestling?
So, I actually, PWX. So, my cousin hit me up, and we were like 12, 13 years old. And she was like, hey, there's this wrestling show. Oh, okay. And it was the very first PWX show. And they were like, yeah, our cousin's wrestling. And I was like, what? And we're related to Rhonda Beast Williams, who just passed away. He was wrestling. And so we went to go into the PWX shows from day one. I watched all the PWX shows. And that's really where I fell in love with the independent wrestling. Because, you're so up close, you're so everything. Unlike when you buy a ticket to the arena, you're so far away. You get to see yourself in the moment of it. But with independent wrestling being so close and being tied in so much as a fan, that's where really my love for wrestling bursted to, like, wow, I want to do this. Seeing guys like Shawn Shocker Evans and, even Iron Warrior coming out with his flames and everything else and his spikes, the stuff that they were doing back then. And, just the feel of how PWX was back in the day, it really just pulled you in as a fan in this area.
How do you go from being somebody who's a fan on the shows to now you're going to get involved in wrestling?
So With getting involved, I actually started doing a little bit of training with T-Rantula whenever he was running FNW at the time, and he had some really good opportunities. It was training, and he had Matt Bourne was always down there training with us. It was actually I was down there with Troy Lords. We were training with him, and he had Brian O, who was a shitbag, and it was nice to have Shane Douglas would come down sometimes, and it was nice getting the feel for guys like Matt Bourne. Holy shit, I watched him on WrestleMania. Now he's in this little crappy building teaching me how to wrestle. So that was really cool. Didn't finish with T. Had a lot going with T, and then actually finished with Shirley Doe hentai for the IWC school.
I mean, I can't gloss over the Brian O shithead, or whatever you called him.
Shitbag.
Shitbag, okay.
Yeah. I might use this term a couple times during this interview. I thought Brian was an okay guy as a wrestler. Being a mentor in this business, he's a piece of shit.
Okay.
He took liberties on me in the ring one time on a show. In a match, when you're training somebody, you shouldn't be doing stuff like that. So, it was just an interesting thing. We trust each other out there, and when you tell your guy to don't move, and then next thing you know, he's cracking you in the fucking neck with a chair.
Oh.
Yeah, and then he's gone by the time you get to the locker room. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a shitbag.
That is a shitbag.
Okay.
Classified.
All right. Well, let's. So you did a little bit of training with T, and then with Shirley Doe.
Mm-hmm.
When did you have your first match?
First match was in 2001, I believe, at the McKeesport High School. That's what I really look at as my first match. Anything that I was doing before that was more spotty stuff.
Okay.
So to really get out there, put a match together, do stuff. I had done a couple of stand-in stuff with. There used to be a company in West Virginia called IYWF, and when I'd go on the road with T, and he would have me do some stuff, but it wasn't really matched. It was just spot stuff. So first match was me and Jake Garrett, Devil Budokan, versus Bubba the Bulldog, and God, who else is in that match? I can't even remember. It was Bubba. I think it might have been Glenn Spector. I can't remember. And then there was another guy who used to always come in the area. He did this Nurple thing in the corner. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he wasn't around here. So, but it was a six-man tag. The only time, and I wish there would have been more times that I actually got in the ring with Devil. So.
Yeah.
But
do you have any specific memories? Did you feel like you were ready for the match at the time?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was training with T for a while, good solid year, and then I started doing a little spot stuff, and then that stuff happened. I actually took time off because I had a little fracture in my neck that I had to take care of.
Just
from
a little fracture.
A little.
Okay.
Yes. It wasn't break. It was nothing. It was a hairline of something that I needed to take care of, and so I took a year off, and then I started training with Doe and Hentai a little bit. So I was there for about another year. So doing that, I really was just like revved up and ready to go because Doe and Hentai. Not to take anything away from T, because a lot of people have their vision of T, and my vision of T is T's a good dude.
Yeah, I love T.
And some other people might look at him differently, but I thought T
Really?
was always a good guy.
I'll tell you one thing: guys who have something bad to say about T,
They won't fucking say it to his face.
They won't say it to his face.
No, so T's a good dude, but I really, to go from a 6'7" guy to Doe and Hentai, who were more where I was with things and technique and everything else. It was, I think I got the best of both worlds, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I was definitely ready to go.
Okay. You have any specific memories from that first match?
I remember Bubba giving me the bulldog and putting my face right down into the mat because I overextended.
Okay.
And I hit my head and I was like, God, it was like, when you hit the dirt, if you're playing baseball and you go head first, put your heads down, your head goes under
Sure.
your body. Yeah, it was one of those situations.
Okay.
But either way, I was loving it because it was first real match out there, ready to go.
One of my favorite questions is always to ask guys, like, if I could send you today
Yeah.
in a time machine back to talk to that person 10 minutes before that first match, and you could have a conversation with yourself, what kind of advice would you give yourself, not just for that match, but for the next 15, 17 years that we're going to follow?
I would say it's the same thing that I would preach to any of the guys that ask me for any advice. Keep your head up, keep your ears open, keep your mouth shut, and just listen and learn from all the experience around you.
Do you feel like maybe you didn't listen and learn enough at the beginning?
No, definitely took a lot in over the years. But I think at any point in time, sometimes in this business we get a little big-headed sometimes, you know. So, of course, there was times where, you know, I think we all walk around where we think our shit doesn't stink. But for the most part, I learned a lot in the years that I've been in pro wrestling.
All these years you've been in, do you have some favorite opponents? And why would some of those guys be your favorite opponents?
You know what? I always enjoyed. I lucked out. I was in an era that was different because IWC was booming. So the people that were coming in were people who are now building the business on television right now. You know, so we had, you know, there's guys like Corey Graves, Sterling. Him and I had lots of matches and had a good time with it. Being able to go out there and get into a match with someone like Superfly Jimmy Snuka, who I watched as a kid, and then I get into a match with, you know, I become a kid again, but you learn so much because he didn't really do much. But everything he did was solid, and it was enough for the fans just to eat it up. I had a great time working with Abyss from TNA. Having a lot of legends come on a show, they would watch your show, you watch your matches, and they give you advice. I can't tell you how many times AJ Styles would pull you aside, and he did it with everybody though. He enjoyed wrestling so much that he would watch everybody's matches and give them some points. Being able to work with people like Punk, BJ Whitmer, you know, learn from guys who were coming in like Chris Hero, Claudio. It was just good timing, I guess, in wrestling with me getting in and working with all those people.
You spent a little bit of time in Japan.
I did.
What was that experience like for you?
It was awesome. I was supposed to go. It's funny. We had a show at IWC, and one of the guys from Japan who was, we'll call him promoting the situation, Mackie, he was trying to set up this huge tag match for us to go over there. It was going to be IWC versus. And we filmed the vignettes and everything. It didn't happen. So later, a couple years went by. I ended up getting in touch with Mackie again, and he, you know, well, we still want to bring you over, get you going. So I was able to go over for about 2 weeks and working some matches. And man, I tell you what, the respect that is shown over there for wrestling, there's a lot of people that I see that just would not be able to hang that are here, you know. And by that I mean just the whole production. You know, I remember walking in, and I was with Shima Zion, or DJ Z, and him and I rode there together. And we walk in, and he's like, he had just been there, so he's like, here, follow my lead. So we go in, and there's the ring getting set up, and there's a line of guys that goes to the back, up the steps, and out the door. And they're literally passing everything down. He's like, fall in line. I was like, okay. So we fell in line, put all the ring up. Then I got to introduce myself to everybody and talk to people. But it was like, it was formation, man. You didn't do nothing until that stuff was done. And if you did, you got your ass handed to you. You know, that's just, it's very disrespectful, you know. A lot of these guys, they don't have to do that nowadays. Pick up the ring, put it down, drive 2 hours, this and that and the other. But it was a great experience. It also humbled me with my ignorance of not knowing enough Japanese to get through, but they were very cool, calm, and collected with me as far as like where we were going with matches, and you know, helping me understand what they're doing, and you know, me helping them understand what I was doing. So it was really working together very well, and a lot of solid hitting over there. A lot of solid hitting. But great experience. Just being over there was something special. To go into all the different towns and, small town, bigger town. It was really cool.
Throughout the mid-2000s, if you're around an area, Western PA, lots of guys you would have said, well, this guy's a PWX guy. This guy's maybe, for me, a KCW guy.
Sure.
This guy's an IWC guy. You were definitely an IWC guy.
I was.
And I don't think anybody could debate that. But how do you go from being such a rock-solid IWC guy to eventually leaving? What happened there?
So, IWC, I'm a firm believer in something. If the WWE wants you, they're going to get you. You don't have to work every organization that's 5 minutes down the road to whore yourself out and get $10 and do whatever you're going to do. If you have what they're looking for, go to their camps, show them, and they'll get all of you. So that was always my point of it. So I didn't see the point of, even though as a kid I grew up watching PWX, I hooked up with Norm and IWC and training school and this and that and the other, and I've known Norm for many years. So I was focused on being there. It was a great product. We were doing good things. And I actually when I had moved out to Arizona with my real life job. So we moved out there, and Norm had brought me in a couple times, but then Norm sold the company off. When I moved back, Chuck was running the company. I'm not really too sure. Things were definitely a little bit different. Everybody's view of their company is different. Norm ran things his way. Chuck ran things his way. You ran yours way, whatever. But there was it was one of those things where Chuck and I didn't see eye to eye on something, and we had a little bit of a falling out. And I just told him to kick rocks. I just, when you're that far into business, to be treated like a child, you're either going to punch someone in the face, or you're going to be the big man and walk away and just tell you, I'm done. In that case, I felt like there was a lot of eyes, younger, older, watching, and I just, I was told I'm done. So that's when I left IWC.
Did you immediately come over to PWX, or was there a period where you thought maybe I'm done with wrestling?
No, I was done. I was done. I honestly, the politics and all the bullshit catches up to you. So I was done. Like, I didn't really have the need. My goal was always go to Japan. My real life job took 6 days a week, 60 hours a week. Hell, everybody wants to make it to the WWE, but if you're being realistic, you're not. So I had a great job, great money, and I wasn't going to put that in front of a chance. Okay, so my goals was Japan. I got to go into Mexico for a little bit when I lived out close, because I was so close to the border. And so going to Japan was like, okay, my goal's fulfilled. So when all that happened, I kind of just went home and I was done with it. I think about a couple weeks went by. Quinn called. BC Steel got in his ear and was like, yeah, he's out there, why not? So he called me and I was like, honestly, Quinn, I got no interest. And he's like, oh, come on. You grew up watching the product, this and that and the other. You got to have interest. And I said, So he's like, look, we got a show. I think it was the end of the year. He's like, we got a show. We'll call it the 26th. Come down, sit in a bird's nest, watch the show. We'll talk. So it was like a good solid month or month and a half. I didn't wrestle. I didn't have nothing to do with wrestling. I didn't want anything to do with wrestling. And I sat down with Quinn and we watched the show. And then at the end of the show, he's like, so this is what I would do with you. And I was like, that sounded good. It got me rejuvenated a little bit. And I was like, okay, sure, we'll do business. So came into PWX, and the rest was from there.
we're jumping way ahead here, but since we're on PWX, was it 2015 you had a retirement match?
Yeah.
I think I remember having a conversation with you then. I'll see you soon.
You'll see me soon. That's right.
And you said no way.
No way.
How does that happen? How do you retire and then? I mean, did you just get the urge, or did you feel like you were all done then and you just had enough? But then the fire starts coming back. What happens?
So, I was really focused on doing training. Brandon and I were running the school, and I was like, "Man, this is really fun, doing the training, teaching, this and that and the other." And I don't want to say I got stagnant, but I was ready to take a step back a little bit, just focus on training, even maybe doing stuff behind the scenes. But I just, so worked it out. I went to Quinn. I wanted to face Gannon, and because Gannon's an incredible athlete in the ring if he's used right. And so we went out there and did the match, and that was it. I honestly had no thoughts of anything, even though you weren't the only one who said, "No, see you in a couple of..." Once my kids got older, they got tired of watching YouTube Daddy, and they wanted to see real life Daddy. So they knew what I did and this and that and the other. And one day I put it on. My daughter, she was like, "I want to watch you wrestle." I put on the thing, and she goes, turns it off. I was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, I want to see Daddy wrestle." And I was like, "Okay, put the TV back on." She goes, "No, I want to see you wrestle." And I was like, damn it. Okay. So I took about 6 months and got out of couch potato shape. Still potato, but I got a couch potato shape. And, got back into it a little bit. So.
Got a lot of years left in you? Your kids are little. Got to create some memories here.
Yeah. You know what? As long as my body holds up, I'm okay with doing it for, a few more years. But I don't really see myself as I'm not in this business now to be this guy. I want to help these guys get to this guy, and I'm sure you can understand exactly what I'm talking about. Helping to propel the younger guys to be better, and if they're willing to listen, get them to the top, help them understand how they need to showcase. I don't mind going out and working with them, but belts or gimmicks, top spots is whatever. Once you get to a certain point in wrestling, when you're the first match, you're like, yes. So it's it's one of those things. That's how I look at it. But I got back in for the kids, and as long as my body holds up.
Okay. You've been a guy that's you've trained a few folks. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, what makes a good wrestler?
What makes a good wrestler is somebody who is willing to not only do their part while they're here training, but you have to do it outside of here too. You got to go to the gym, you got to eat right, you got to do your stuff. Because if you don't and you're coming to training and you're gassing up, then you're questioning yourself, "Oh, I can't make it." Well, how much are you doing outside of here? Do you really want to do it? And I think that's always been something that was preached all through training. There was a couple people who did, and there was a couple people who didn't. And those are the ones who were always like, just can't, and the simple stuff. So
outside of cardio,
yeah.
If somebody came up to you at the end of the show today and said, "Hey, this looks awesome. I want to be a wrestler. I have no idea how to get started," what kind of advice would you give that person?
Well, first I'd ask them how old they were, and then see how they were with school. Because, if there was one thing, Kato, to jump back onto your question, is I probably would have taken more time to follow up with some school and some stuff. But I was so focused on the job I had and then wrestling. That's all it was. So I would tell them, there's no guarantees in this business. So make sure you have something laid out for you, some kind of groundwork. And then here's the number, and I can get you to contact for it. But definitely see where their head is mentally, and if they really want to do it because it's cool, or if they want to do it because it's something that we've loved for so many years.
If someone were to ask you where I should go train at, because maybe my philosophy is on this has changed a bit over the years. So I'm curious about your thoughts on it. If someone says, "Hey, I live around the corner here. I'm going to school. Everything's great. Where should I go train?" Would you tell them? And I'm not going to pick out a specific school in the area. I'm just going to say, should you go? Would you recommend someone go here, locally in Pittsburgh, if they live here in Pittsburgh, or would you suggest, hey, go train with the Wild Samoans? Or do you think you can get there from here?
I think that you can get somewhere from here. It's all in what you put into it. If you want to be the local guy who wakes up and goes to work every day, and that's how I look at a local guy. You're waking up and going to work every day. Or if you want to be the guy who is Brad Pitt, then you go where you got to go to do it. Getting your initial training somewhere solid isn't the problem. The problem is the follow through. There's a lot of places to go, dojos, clinics, this and that and the other, to follow up with, to make yourself better, because it's all about interaction. I firmly believe that, Quinn's training at school right now. Quinn is fully capable of training somebody to be successful. His mind for the business is amazing. So anybody who comes down here and learns from him to be a pro wrestler absolutely could be successful. What you do after you leave him or us or anybody that you train with, it's on you. When Daniel Bryan trained with Shawn Michaels, it wasn't, you're an automatic star. Shawn was out of the business. He had to go do his thing. Did it help him later in life? Who knows? Probably. But if he didn't put all that time in and do everything he needed to do, you got the Monster Factory out east. You could go out west to the Santino brothers. They're really good. Obviously, Lance Storm has his thing. And even just working hard at what you do and trying to go to the WWE facility for a tryout, they'll tell you what you could do better or what you have and what you don't have. So, that's kind of how I stand on it.
Yeah.
Wrestling's what you put into it.
I'm sort of torn for myself, and I don't want to take up too much time with my own thoughts on it, but I think about some of the guys that I've trained, like Calvin McGrath, who was as good as anybody, and Sebastian, and there's Xander Graves. Those are three guys that are out of the business, but guys that are still in it, like Chris LaRusso and Jimmy the Hippie and Bill Collier, are all guys that I trained that, and I'll use Bill as an example because he's a giant human, amazing athlete. But I think sometimes, as good as he is, whenever he goes and he says, when they see him wrestle and they're like, wow, and then they say, who trained you? And he says, this guy at Altoona, Ken, wrestles Kato.
Sure.
I think it hurts them.
And that's why you have the Dory Funk stuff and everything else. Look, Sterling trained here. But where else did he go? He did Dory Funk. He did other stuff. And I think it comes down to the resume of it. Yeah, you might put a guy named Ken or a guy named Mike on there. But if you have Dory Funk, Monster Factory, Performance Center, Santino, wherever you go, if you have that resume, I think that's where you get less questions. If you just stick with one guy, then I think you are going to get those questions. Because look, why is Bill Collier not signed? I got nothing.
It's the great mystery of this universe.
Yeah.
I remember the day you
don't know.
walked into my school, I thought, yay, I'm going to get a guy signed because this guy, I've had a few of those over the years where they walked in and I went, yay.
Yeah.
And then it just didn't work out. And I think, as proud as I am of how good some of these guys have gotten, LaRusso's and, and Jimmy the Hippies and some of these other guys, I feel sort of bad in my own mind that, maybe they didn't get as far as they should have if they'd have went to the Monster Factory or if they'd have went to the Wild Samoan School.
Sure. And
I don't know if they would have been any better in ring than they are now. They just they didn't have that right name. So I don't know. I understand that maybe it's more feasible if you live in Altoona to train with me, like LaRusso. But I often wonder, LaRusso's really skilled. If he had trained at the Monster Factory, where would he be today? So I don't know. That's an age-old question. I guess we'll never really have an answer for.
I think, and you know what, and I think that's a hard pill to swallow. You, me, trainers, anybody who's done anything. I mean, look at Lee Moriarty, okay? So I had a great time training Lee. Lee is skilled, but I told Lee, you got to go somewhere else. Get out of this town. Go train in Mexico. Go train in Japan. Go over UK. Go out west. Go further east. Whatever you got to do. Get more stuff under your belt. So I think even though he's really, really good, building that resume, does Dory Funk even do stuff anymore? I don't know if he...
It's a great question. I have no idea.
I don't know. But, I mean, I think that the one thing that I always pushed was go. Don't just be in the kitchen with all the cooks. Go. Be different. Do something.
Okay. Let's jump into my favorite part of this. It's called word association.
All right.
I'm going to bring up a name, and you just tell me what pops into your mind.
Okay.
Let's start with Shirley Doe.
Shirley Doe. Oh, man.